This is my 2019 Honda Civic Type R in championship white. Now, I've owned this vehicle for almost a year, and it's literally the nicest car I've ever owned. I know it's just a Civic, but it's the nicest car I've ever owned. You might be wondering, Ethan, you've owned this car for almost a year. Why the heck haven't you made a video with it? I don't really have a good answer for that, other than maybe I've just been too busy trying to keep my other terrible cars running properly. Yeah, I don't have a good excuse considering how much I love this vehicle. It's amazing, the performance is insane, it's practical, my family actually likes it. There's so many good qualities about this car, it's really dumb that I haven't made a video with it. Okay, so before I get into why I purchased this insanely capable machine, let's talk about the specs, let's talk about why people love this vehicle so much. The Honda Civic Type R graced North American shores starting in the 2017 model year, and us Americans finally got a taste of what our friends across the pond had been chewing on for years. For this FK8 platform Type R, Honda outfitted the car with a turbocharged and intercooled 2-liter 4-cylinder, making 306 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That power is routed through a super slick 6-speed transmission and sent to the front wheels. With all of that potential to overpower the front wheel's rubber, Honda also engineered an extremely clever dual-axis front suspension, which essentially kick torque steer to the curb. Forget any preconceived notions you might have about a front-wheel drive performance car. This formidable iteration of the iconic Type R quickly broke front-wheel drive lap records and was crowned as the most powerful production Honda ever sold in the United States. While it may just look like a heavily stylized compact car, the FK8 Type R is basically a race car wrapped in a Civic body. A couple years ago, I did a video with a Honda Civic Type R that I rented, and in very plain terms in that video, I stated how much I hated the way this vehicle looked. It's cringeworthy. I mean, hold on a second. It's immature, it's ostentatious, it's over the top. And you might be wondering, Ethan, why did you buy a car that you hated how it looks? You know, honestly, I have to say my opinion on the looks of this vehicle has changed. And yes, I know the FK8 Type R has an aesthetic that not everyone appreciates. But living with this car day in and day out, understanding that every outrageous bit has a function, how everything was about taking a simple small car and making it a monster on a canyon road or a racetrack, I now get it. It has the outrageous capabilities to back up its outrageous looks. And now that it's been out for a few years, it kind of makes the new Type R look a bit plain. And it's funny because when I bought this car, I was thinking I'm immediately going to take off that gigantic rear wing. But then I just decided this car is ridiculous. It needs the wing. A Type R is not a Type R without the wing. And as I've gotten older, I realized that I just don't give a shit what people think about my vehicle. So if you don't like a Type R and you want to barf as you drive by, that's fine, but I'm having a blast driving this thing. And one thing that I did is I put new wheels and tires on this car. I'll tell you about that in a bit when we go driving it. But I think the 18-inch wheels on this vehicle look a whole lot better than the stock 20s. The stock 20s give you like a millimeter of sidewall, so you feel every bump in the road. And honestly, I think they just look kind of goofy, so I'm really glad I went with these, but we'll talk about that more in a bit. But yeah, I think the FK8 Type Rs look way better on 18-inch wheels with more sidewall and a little bit wider of a tire. Now, obviously there's been a lot of videos made about the FK8 Type R, but now that the new one's out, it's probably worth revisiting this one, especially considering if you want a new one, you're likely going to be paying over sticker, like probably a lot over sticker. So a used one might be a good bet. All right, enough screwing around, let's drive this thing. So as I mentioned, I've had this vehicle for almost a year, and it didn't take me long to realize that it's really kind of the perfect blend of insane capability and practicality. I mean, look back there, huge hatchback. So not only is it insanely fast, the handling is nothing short of incredible, but I can also cart my family around, plus have a whole bunch of space for all of our crap in the hatchback. So as usual, I'm on one of my favorite canyon roads, and it's just crazy how capable this car is when it comes to handling. It is so flat through all of these turns. There is like no body roll. And of course, you've got that ingenious front suspension design, which pretty much eliminates torque steer, and it really works very well. So yeah, just to recap, 306 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. This fantastic engine is mated to a 6-speed manual transmission. Yes, powering those front wheels, you'd think it would be a terrible driving experience with all that power going up there, but Honda figured this out. It's awesome. It's not the fastest car in the world. It is very quick, mind you, 0 to 60 in as quick as 4.9 seconds, but I don't really care too much about that. What I care about is how much fun you can have on a canyon road. It's really hard to put into words how enjoyable this car is on a windy stretch of asphalt. Oh gosh, this car is good. So you know me, I'm a fan of cars that are values. I'm a fan of cars that are cheap. And this one, by my standards, isn't that cheap. If you look at my collection of vehicles, this is the most expensive car I've had. This is the most expensive car I've ever owned. I know it's, for a lot of people, it's just a Civic, but the Type R is worth every penny. So, you know, having this penchant for not spending a lot of money on vehicles, I didn't really want to spend a lot of money on this Type R. So I found the cheapest one I could find in California. It had about 70,000 miles when I got it. I've put on about 4,000 miles so far. So I figured if I was gonna buy myself a nice car, at least I'd try to find the cheapest one in California. So I paid $32,000, which, yeah, it's a lot of money, but these things hold their value. And the impetus behind buying this vehicle was that I wanted something reliable. Pretty much only have my wife's Prius as the family car, and you know, it's not really that much fun to drive. And the rest of my collection of crappy hoopties, didn't really ever feel comfortable driving my kid around in them, as many of them break down in the worst possible locations, as seen by this montage of my vehicles on tow trucks. Speaking of tow trucks, this vehicle was on a tow truck at one point. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, my goal was something reliable, something insanely fun, something practical, and this checked all those boxes perfectly. I mean, I really wanted a 911S, but my daughter wouldn't be so comfortable in the back one of those. I was also looking at the Veloster N. I was just a little bit turned off by the 3-door nature of that vehicle. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the Veloster N. If it had 4 doors, I might have ended up with that one, but this one's a little bit more practical, a little bit more useful for a family. Okay, let's get back to that tow truck story. Yes, this vehicle was on a tow truck not too long ago. Wasn't any problem with the engine, wasn't any problem with the transmission, nothing like that. It was just that terrible, terrible 20-inch wheel and tire combination. So yes, the Type R came with those 20-inch wheels with tires that were essentially a rubber band wrapped around a giant piece of metal, almost no sidewall, very uncomfortable over certain roads, certain bumpy roads. And I heard a lot of stories about people cutting tires and bending rims. And then one day, driving up Angeles Crest Highway, all of a sudden I hear, sure enough, there was a blowout. I don't know if I cut my tire on a rock or I hit a screw or something, I'm not really sure. And I get out, go to the back, pull out that crappy little pump they give you because the Type R does not come with a spare tire, try to fill it up for about 20 minutes, no dice. Of course, I was in an area with no cell service. Thankfully, a good Samaritan helped me out, drove me to the bottom of the hill, got a tow truck driver, about an hour and a half round trip. We got back up to the car and towed me out of there. It just seems so dumb to have to get a tow for a flat tire. So I immediately ditched those terrible stock 20-inch wheels and tires, swapped them out with some 18s, gained about 40% more sidewall. So much more comfortable. It was a huge upgrade for a Type R. So I went with Enkei TSV wheels. They're wrapped in 255/40 ZR18 Continental Extreme Contact Sport XL tires. That's a mouthful. So not only does it ride better, the wheels are significantly lighter than the stock 20s, so you have less unsprung weight on each corner. They're only 0.9% bigger in diameter. The width is 4% greater, so they poke out just a tiny bit, and it makes them look way better than the stock wheels. In fact, I think the 20s that came on the car look kind of goofy, so I'm glad that I upgraded to these wheels and tires. And because I didn't want to get stranded again without a spare tire, I decided to install a Honda spare tire kit. And you can just get that right from the Honda dealer. and it gives me a whole lot more peace of mind knowing that I'm not gonna have to get a tow down a mountain for a flat tire. How stupid is that? Yeah, the car weighs about 20, 30 pounds heavier with all that crap in the back, but it's not like I'm racing this thing, you know? Aside from the performance and the practicality, the other thing that I absolutely love about this vehicle is the reliability. It's a Honda. This thing has been just perfect. All I've done so far is an oil change. Now, when it comes to the drivetrain, I'm a huge fan. This gearbox is just buttery, fantastic, delicious shifts. Yes, I said delicious. These shifts are tasty. Now, when it comes to this interior, you know, obviously the brand new Civic is slightly nicer, but this is pretty good too. My favorite thing about this interior are the seats. They are just supremely comfortable. They give you a nice big warm hug. I fit in these perfectly. I suppose if you were a little bit wider, they might be slightly less comfortable, but for me, they're great. After a few years, these side bolsters do start to move a little bit, so they don't hug you quite as tightly as they did when they were new, but still pretty good. So yeah, so many things I love about this vehicle. My list of complaints actually is pretty short, and none of these things are really a big deal, just kind of like little nitpicks you start to realize after owning a car for a while. The interior is kind of loud, so if you're on the freeway, kind of drones. There's not a whole lot of sound deadening. So if you're gonna use this on a road trip or something, it's gonna be kind of drony. You know, the engine doesn't sound great. It doesn't really have a whole lot of personality. I know you can improve that by swapping out the exhaust. I have the stock exhaust on here because I don't really care about the sound that much. This infotainment system's not the best. It's pretty slow, especially when you press the climate button. You just sit there and wait. So yeah, a bit laggy. Again, just nitpicks. And my other huge complaint about this car, this is probably the worst thing about it, is that I don't drive it enough. And that's not a fault of the car, obviously. It's a fault of my busy schedule. Blame it on my family, spending time with them. I mean, I guess I really enjoy that, but it means that I don't drive this car as much. I bought this Type R as a fun car, as a weekend car. It's a car that I didn't really need, but it's a car that I absolutely wanted. The goal was to have something where all of the miles were enjoyable. It's a car that I didn't want to be stuck in Los Angeles traffic. I didn't want to be doing stupid little trips to the supermarket. I wanted to use it only for canyon road driving or for racetrack driving or for road trips, just to get out of town to places where it's actually enjoyable to drive a car. Yeah, and that's the biggest problem with this car, is that I haven't driven it enough. So much capability that's just sitting there, mostly in my garage. But at least I'm driving it today. When I was looking to buy this, I wanted the most exciting and enjoyable car I could find that was also extremely practical, and this is it. The motor is lovely, the handling is insane, it's got Honda reliability, it's got an ingenious front suspension design, the engineering is great, it's got a huge back seat, huge trunk, my wife doesn't mind riding in it, my kid loves it, and it even has a great stereo. So on paper, I found the perfect car, but I'm selling it. Yes, that's correct. This car that you've never seen on my channel before, this is the first video I've made with it. Yeah, I'm selling it. You're probably not gonna see it on the channel again, sorry. But it's not because I don't like the car. I love this car. I know, I'm full of contradictions. Why am I selling it, you might be asking. You're probably asking me that over and over again. Why am I selling this car? I just don't drive it enough. There's so many things I love about this vehicle, but I have a lot of money wrapped up into a car that sits in the garage most of the time. Part of that is because I own 13 cars, so I can't be driving all 13 cars every day, right? Not exactly practical to do that. I also work from home, so I don't really need to drive that much. And I live in Los Angeles, so honestly, I've been trying to drive less just because I'm sick of being stuck in traffic. It's not really fun driving around in this city. We have amazing canyon roads not too far from here. They're some of the best in the country, maybe even the world. I mean, you'd think, why wouldn't I be up there every single day? But the reality is I can't get up to the canyons often enough to justify owning a car like this. I don't really like having this much money tied up in something that I'm only gonna drive maybe once a week. So for my personal situation, this car didn't end up working out. If I had all the money in the world, I'd probably just keep it in my garage, but I kind of want some of that money back. So this car is going up for sale. I think the other thing is that I just can't really justify owning a car this capable. I don't get to the racetrack very often, and that's where this vehicle shines. If you own a Type R, you absolutely need to take it to the racetrack because it's way too much car for the street. Yeah, you can have some fun, you know, zipping up freeway on-ramps or having a spirited drive on a canyon road, but there is so much car here. If you actually wanted to reach the limits of this vehicle, you'd probably end up careening off the side of a cliff. I guess so what it comes down to, philosophically for me, if I'm gonna drive a car spiritedly on a back road, I wanna drive a slow car fast. If I have a fast car, I wanna just do that on a racetrack. There's a lot of people that like to treat canyon roads as racetracks, and I don't think you should do that. I used to when I was younger. In my older age, I've realized that that's kind of stupid. I've seen enough people die careening off the edge of Angeles Crest Highway that I don't really want to do that. So yeah, I guess this is just my, like, the dad part of me coming out to say, if you have a car like this, just take it to the racetrack because you're gonna be able to get more out of the vehicle than you would on the street. But anyway, this car is an insane amount of fun. It's just honestly too much for me. I need my stupid little 80 horsepower hoopties. And then maybe that's the other reason why I didn't really make a video with this car, because it doesn't really fit in with all the terrible cars that I usually have on my channel. I guess the other thing I've realized is that I just maybe don't really enjoy having newer cars that much because I'm so worried about getting little dents and dings and stuff, as opposed to when I have a car that's old and already has dents and dings, it's not a big deal. So I guess those are the reasons why I'm selling this. I think it's gonna be the perfect car for somebody else. It's just not really exactly the right car for me. But I love it. I don't want to get rid of it. It's so much fun. All right, there you have it. I'm selling the nicest vehicle I've ever owned. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I'm going to regret this, I guarantee it. But I know this vehicle is gonna go to somebody that can hopefully take advantage of its capabilities a little bit more than I've been able to. I'm gonna miss this car. There's just nothing like it. It's so amazing on a canyon road, so amazing on a racetrack. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna leave this video on a downer note because I'm really gonna miss this one.